The file on my desk shook slightly with each tap of my fingernail against the mahogany surface. Through my office window, I watched the red Ferrari screech to a halt on my circular driveway, its custom paint catching the afternoon sun like freshly spilled blood. My heart hammered against my ribs as Pamela, my ex-husband's new wife, emerged from the car, clutching a leather portfolio like a weapon. In that moment, time seemed to slow as I recognized exactly what was happening. She was here to take my home. My name is Rachel. I'm 45 and the silent owner of a real estate empire. This is the story of how I reclaimed not just my property, but my power. Mrs. Blackwood, my housekeeper Teresa, burst through the door, her normally composed face flushed with alarm. That woman is demanding entry. She has papers, eviction papers. Let her in, I said calmly, switching off my laptop where I'd been reviewing acquisition proposals for 3 luxury developments across the country. And Teresa, please record everything on your phone, discreetly. I'd spent 20 years being underestimated by my ex-husband Gregory, by his business associates, by everyone who saw my charity committee meetings as nothing more than a bored housewife's pastimes. Today would be different. Today, someone would finally see me. Pamela's heels clicked aggressively across my marble foyer. Even I had to admit she was stunning, all long legs and perfect features that only youth and expensive surgeons could provide. The kind of woman Gregory had traded me in for after 20 years of marriage. Our divorce had been finalized last year, though Gregory had been gone from our home for nearly 18 months now. "You need to pack your things," she announced without preamble, standing in my doorway with her designer outfit practically radiating smugness. "Daddy's company has acquired this property, and we're demolishing it to build something more elegant." Her red lips curved into what she clearly thought was a victorious smile, though I suppose you wouldn't know much about elegance. I glanced down at my simple black dress, a stark contrast to her ostentatious ensemble. The dress had cost more than her car, but its value wasn't in its appearance. It was in its invisibility. Men like her father never looked twice at a woman in a simple black dress. "Please sit." I gestured to the antique chairs I'd imported from a French chateau. "Would you like some tea?" "I don't have time for tea parties," she sneered, throwing the portfolio onto my desk. "These are eviction papers. You have 48 hours. I didn't bother opening them. "How interesting. And your father's company would be Sterling Luxury Properties." "Daddy just acquired this whole community," she preened. "He says it's been mismanaged." She wrinkled her nose at my decor, which had been featured in Architectural Digest last spring. "Sterling Properties," I mused, "owned by Terrence Sterling." "My father is a very powerful man," she gloated. "This little house you've been squatting in, it's nothing compared to what we're building." I smiled, remembering Terrence Sterling's desperate pitch meeting last month. He'd never met the owner of Aurora Development Group, the silent corporation that had been buying up prime real estate across the country. He'd sent endless proposals trying to partner with or sell to us. I had created Aurora Development Group 15 years ago, while Gregory was focused on his own career, using the inheritance from my grandmother that I'd kept separate from our marital assets. "Does your father know you're here?" I asked mildly. "Daddy lets me handle all sorts of business now," she boasted, "and my first order of business is getting rid of my husband's sad ex-wife. Gregory told me how you begged to keep this house in the divorce. Pathetic." I thought about Gregory, about how he'd assumed the house was my only asset, never questioning where I disappeared to during all those charity committee meetings over the years. Men like him and Terrence Sterling never looked too closely at a woman's business interests. "Tell me about these renovation plans," I said, buying time as I watched Teresa's phone discreetly recording from behind a vase. "We're tearing down all these dated mansions," she gestured dismissively, "building modern homes for people who actually belong in luxury communities." She smirked. "I told Gregory it was embarrassing having his ex-wife living here like some charity case." My phone buzzed, a text from my CFO about Sterling's latest proposal. I held back a smile as I read it. "And you're certain your father owns this property?" "Of course I'm certain," she snapped. The deal closed last week. Sterling Properties owns everything. The houses, the golf course, the clubhouse. Now pack your bags before I call security. That would be interesting, I murmured, considering I signed their paychecks. She blinked. What? Sterling Properties did make an offer, I acknowledged. It was denied rather firmly, as I recall. You're lying, she said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. Daddy said, Your father, I interrupted quietly, has been trying to get a meeting with Aurora Development Group's owner for months. He's quite persistent. Aurora? Her perfectly lined eyes widened, but that's the actual owner of this community. Yes. I opened my laptop, turning it to show her the proposals I'd been reviewing, along with about 30 others from across the country. Your father's latest offer was quite ambitious, but ultimately inadequate. She snatched up the portfolio, papers spilling across my desk. This is impossible. You're just a housewife. Gregory said what he knew, which wasn't much. Men rarely look too closely at their wives' charity committee meetings or investment club luncheons. I stood, smoothing my simple dress. Would you like to see the real property documents? I need to call my father. Her hands shook as she grabbed for her phone. Excellent idea, though perhaps you should also mention the way you burst in here threatening the owner of his most coveted acquisition target. I'm sure he'll be thrilled. The blood drained from her face. Please don't tell Daddy. Now, why would I do that? Watching you try to evict me from my own house has been so entertaining. I picked up my teacup. Though I should mention the Ferrari you drove up in, it's parked in a no parking zone. I hate to have it towed. She backed away, designer heels stumbling. This isn't over. Actually, it is. But feel free to have your father call me directly. I believe he has my office number. I smiled. Oh, and Pamela? The next time you want to threaten someone with eviction, make sure you actually own the property first. Real Estate 101. I watched through the window as she sped away, already dialing frantically. Teresa appeared at my elbow with a fresh cup of tea. Shall I send the recording to your lawyers, Mrs. Blackwood? Please. And Teresa, call the property manager. I think it's time to review all residents' lease compliance, especially the Sterlings. My phone buzzed again, Terrence Sterling's number. I let it go to voicemail, imagining his panic when his daughter told him whose house she'd just tried to seize. But this was just the beginning. After all, I hadn't built an empire by revealing all my cards at once. I picked up my phone, dialing my lawyer. Oliver, remember that hostile takeover strategy we discussed for Sterling Properties? I think it's time to accelerate our timeline. The next morning, my security team alerted me to 3 separate calls from Terrence Sterling. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the real estate conference, where I was scheduled to be the surprise keynote speaker next week, the same conference where Sterling planned to announce his acquisition of my properties. Mrs. Blackwood, my assistant Sarah buzzed through, Mr. Sterling and his daughter are at the gate. He's quite insistent. I pulled up the security feed on my laptop. Terrence Sterling's Bentley idled at the entrance, while Pamela slumped in the passenger seat, looking considerably less polished than yesterday. Let them through, I said, but have security escort them directly to my home office. I switched screens to a Zoom call with my board of directors. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we're about to have some unexpected entertainment. Minutes later, Terrence Sterling burst through my office door, his expensive suit failing to hide his panic. Pamela trailed behind, refusing to meet my eyes. Ms. Blackwood, he started, then faltered as he saw the board members on my screen. We need to speak privately. Why? I think the board would be very interested in hearing about your daughter's attempt to seize company property. I gestured to the chairs. Please sit. This is all a misunderstanding. He tugged at his collar. Pamela was overzealous. She didn't realize that she was threatening the owner of Aurora Development Group, I finished. Interesting, since you've been pursuing a partnership with us for months. I had no idea you were... He glanced at my simple outfit and the modest office decor. The rumor said Aurora's owner was a man, I supplied. How disappointing that someone of your experience would make such an assumption. On the screen, several board members smiled knowingly. Many were women I'd met during my early days, when we were all underestimated by men like Terrence Sterling. The deal, he tried again. We can still make this work. A merger between Sterling and Aurora. A merger? I pulled up his company's financials on my laptop. Your company is leveraged to the point of collapse, Terrence. Those acquisition announcements you've been making, all smoke and mirrors to attract investors. Pamela's head snapped up. Daddy, what is she talking about? I continued. In fact, your hostile attempt to claim ownership of my properties was likely a desperate move to secure funding before your creditors called in their loans. That's not, he sputtered, but the guilt on his face was clear. Your father, I told Pamela, has been running a shell game, announcing acquisitions before securing financing, using each announcement to attract investors for the next deal. But it's all falling apart, isn't it, Terrence? He slumped in his chair. How did you... I've been watching you for months. Your aggressive expansion, the inflated purchase prices, the mysterious private funding that never quite materialized. I closed my laptop. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate before letting you anywhere near my properties? We can fix this, he pleaded. A partnership... Actually, I interrupted, I had something else in mind. I slid a document across my desk. This is an offer to buy Sterling Properties. The price is fair considering your debt load. He snatched up the paper, face reddening as he read. This is highway robbery. It's generous given that I could wait 2 months for your company to collapse and buy it for pennies on the dollar. I smiled. Consider it a premium for solving my problem quickly. What problem? Pamela demanded. Your residence in my community, for one. The terms of the buyout include immediate vacancy of all Sterling-owned properties. I met her eyes. Including your father's house. She gasped. But that's our home. Like this was supposed to be my home, I asked mildly, before you tried to evict me. Terrence gripped the arms of his chair. You can't do this. I already am. I pointed to my screen. The board has approved the acquisition. Your creditors have accepted our terms. All that's left is your signature, unless you prefer bankruptcy. Daddy, Pamela's voice shook, what about my wedding next month? The press announcements... About that, I pulled up another document. Given Sterling's misrepresentation of assets, we'll need to issue a correction, particularly regarding your claims about owning this community. Terrence's face went ashen. The publicity will be devastating. I agreed, though perhaps not as devastating as your daughter's recorded attempts to illegally evict the actual owner. Pamela burst into tears, mascara streaking down her cheeks. This is all Gregory's fault. He said you were just a sad divorcee living off alimony. Yes, about Gregory. I checked my watch. He should be receiving some interesting news right about now. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. I smiled as I read it. It seems your husband just discovered his position at Sterling Investment Group is being eliminated in the restructuring. I told Pamela. A restructuring that's happening because his father-in-law's company is being acquired. You planned all this, Terrence accused. You let Pamela make a fool of herself just to trap us. No, Terrence, you did that yourselves. I simply gave you enough rope. I pushed a pen across the desk. Now, shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? For the next hour, I watched Terrence Sterling sign away his crumbling empire. Each signature seemed to age him, while Pamela alternated between tears and furious texting, presumably to Gregory, who wasn't answering. As security prepared to escort them out, I held up a hand. One more thing. I handed Pamela a small card, the contact information for my first real estate mentor. She specializes in helping young women build legitimate careers in this industry. I met her shocked eyes. In case you decide you'd rather earn success than marry it. Why would you help me? She whispered. After what I did? Because 20 years ago, I was underestimated just like you're being underestimated now. The difference is I chose to prove them wrong through hard work, not marriage. She stared at the card for a long moment before slipping it into her purse. After they left, my board members applauded. Beautifully handled, our chairwoman smiled, though I suspect this isn't the end of the story. No, I agreed, thinking of Gregory and the other dominoes yet to fall. This was just the beginning of their education. My phone buzzed with another text, Gregory finally discovering his world was collapsing. I let it go to voicemail, instead pulling up the real estate conference schedule for next week. It was time to prepare my keynote speech. After all, I had quite a story to tell about the dangers of underestimating women in business. The real estate conference's main hall fell silent as I took the stage 1 week later. In the front row, Terrence Sterling sat ashen-faced, while Gregory shifted uncomfortably beside him. Pamela was notably absent. Apparently she'd flown to Europe after the tabloids caught Gregory moving out of their mansion. Gregory had been staying at his company apartment, or what he thought was his company apartment. In reality, it was one of my properties, leased to Sterling Investment Group under a subsidiary of Aurora. Success in real estate isn't just about properties, I began, scanning the crowd. It's about recognizing value others miss, like when people mistake a simple black dress for weakness, or assume a woman at a charity lunch can't possibly be building an empire. Murmurs rippled through the audience as recognition dawned. I clicked to my first slide, a photo of the eviction notice Pamela had tried to serve me. Last week, a young woman tried to evict me from my own house, I said, and scattered laughter followed. She assumed, as many do, that a divorced woman in her 40s must be living on alimony. That assumption cost her father's company everything. Terrence Sterling stared at his shoes, while Gregory glared daggers at me. I continued, enjoying their discomfort. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's about the costly mistakes we make when we let prejudice blind us to opportunity. I clicked to the next slide, Aurora Development Group's portfolio. While certain companies were announcing imaginary acquisitions, we were quietly building the largest luxury residential portfolio in 3 states. The numbers spoke for themselves. Gasps echoed as people realized just how much I controlled. Today, I'm announcing Aurora's expansion into commercial properties. I paused for effect, starting with the complete acquisition of Sterling Properties and its subsidiaries. Terrence Sterling stood abruptly, heading for the exit. Gregory started to follow, but my next words froze him mid-step. And as part of our restructuring, we're launching a mentorship program for women in real estate development. I smiled directly at Gregory, because talent doesn't care about gender or age, something my ex-husband never quite understood during our 20 years together. The audience erupted in applause as Gregory finally fled the room. I wrapped up my speech with the announcement of 3 new luxury developments, then stepped into the wings where my team waited. Mrs. Blackwood, my assistant handed me a phone. Pamela Sterling is on line 1. She's calling about the mentorship program. I took the call, surprised to hear genuine humility in her voice. I've spent 2 weeks thinking about what you said, she admitted, about earning success instead of marrying it. I'd like to learn the right way this time. Be at my office Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp, I told her. And Pamela? Leave the Ferrari at home. You'll be starting in the leasing office, learning from the ground up. Thank you, she said softly, and I'm sorry about before. After hanging up, I checked my messages. Gregory had finally figured out I'd owned his company apartment all along. His eviction notice had just been served by my property management team, and he would need to vacate within 30 days. Our divorce had granted him no claims to my business assets, as he'd been too focused on his career to notice my growing empire. The finalized divorce settlement from a year ago had made this abundantly clear to his lawyers, though not to his ego. My lawyer approached with final papers from the Sterling acquisition. Terrence Sterling signed everything. He's taking early retirement. Make sure the settlement includes a non-compete clause, I instructed. And Gregory? His golden parachute just turned into lead. The board approved voiding his contract due to ethical violations. I nodded, gathering my things. Outside, my driver waited with the car, not a Ferrari or Bentley, but a sensible luxury sedan, the kind that suggested success without screaming desperation. As we pulled away from the conference center, I spotted Gregory arguing with the valet about his repossessed car. Terrence Sterling stood nearby, looking lost without his company badge. Should we offer them a ride? My driver asked with a smirk. No, I settled back, checking emails about my next acquisition. I think they both need to learn the value of walking. My phone buzzed with a message from Pamela. Thank you for the second chance. I won't waste it. Perhaps that was the best revenge, not just winning, but teaching the next generation of women to succeed on their own terms. After all, success is the best response to those who underestimate you. I opened my calendar to Monday, adding a note. 7 a.m. Begin Pamela's Real Education. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in transforming them into allies.